At 8:58 p.m. local time, the alarms on Ukraine's Unified Energy Control Center flickered from yellow to solid red. Across 3 regions, high-altitude radar reported the same pattern. Multiple tracks rising from the Black Sea and southern Russia, fanning out toward the interior like the teeth of a comb. Seconds later, ground-based air defense screens confirmed it. This was not a probing strike. It was a campaign against the grid. The attack had started far beyond Ukraine's borders. In Russia's southern military district, 2 95MS bombers rolled down the runway, heavy with Kh-101 cruise missiles programmed with detailed terrain maps and substation imagery. In the Black Sea, a frigate and at least 1 Kalibr-capable submarine came to launch depth, tubes already flooded. Inside occupied territory, Iskander-M launchers elevated their canisters, computers crunching ballistic solutions to key transformer yards and switching hubs. The concept of operations was simple and brutal. Use cheap drones to saturate defenses, advanced cruise missiles to carve out key nodes, and ballistic missiles to smash whatever remained standing. The target set was not random. It was the 330 kilovolts and 750 kilovolts backbone, the high-voltage arteries feeding industrial clusters, railway corridors, and major cities. Take out enough of those, and generation plants become stranded islands of unused power. The first wave belonged to the sea. Kalibr missiles broke from vertical launch cells in white fountains, engines catching and climbing before rolling onto low-altitude profiles. Minutes later, the 295s loosed Kh-101s in staggered salvos, spacing impacts so Ukrainian dispatchers would be forced to fight multiple grid emergencies at once. Above the clouds, Russian early warning and electronic intelligence assets listened for every radar activation on the other side of the border, logging frequencies and locations for future strikes. Then the noise layer arrived. From improvised launch ramps and occupied zones, Jiran-2 loitering munitions, license-built Shahed derivatives, climbed slowly into the night. Their engines produced the by now familiar harsh buzz that civilians called lawnmowers. Individually, each drone was crude: a plywood airframe, commercial-grade navigation, a simple warhead. In mass, they were a weaponized math problem. Every drone forced a decision: spend a missile, risk ground fire, or let it through and hope it was not heading for a critical node. In Kiev's underground air defense and grid control centers, 2 battles unfolded on adjacent screens. On the left, blue icons moving against red tracks, SAM batteries, fighter patrols, and incoming threats. On the right, a live map of voltage, frequency, and power flows. As northern sectors reported Shahed swarms at treetop level and western sectors flagged ballistic trajectories arcing in from the horizon, commanders knew the truth. Tonight was not about one city or one plant. It was about whether the national grid could absorb a deliberate, multi-axis attempt to break its spine. The first confirmed impact came at 9:19 p.m. A 750 kilovolt substation in central Ukraine, codenamed Atlas by grid operators, registered a sudden spike on one line, then silence. Cameras caught the last 3 seconds. A dark silhouette crossing low over the fence line, a white flash at the control building, then static. Inside the operations room, the Atlas panel switched from live telemetry to a flat gray block. Communications with the relay room were gone. Automatic protection tripped the remaining lines, isolating the node before its instability could drag neighboring regions down. Minutes later, the pattern repeated itself hundreds of kilometers away. A Kh-101 coming in just above treetop level pitched up slightly and dove onto a 330 kilovolt transformer yard feeding an industrial cluster and a railway junction. The warhead was optimized for infrastructure, delayed fuse, directional fragmentation. It detonated between two oil-filled transformers, rupturing tanks and shredding bushings. Burning, insulating oil poured across the gravel, turning the yard into a field of controlled explosions. Protective relays saw a wall of faults and did what they were built to do: open breakers, kill lines, save the rest of the system from collapse. In a regional dispatch center, the chief engineer watched red alarms cascade down his SCADA screens. Line trips, undervoltage, lost telemetry. With each substation that went dark, the model of the grid his algorithms relied on became less accurate. He ordered controlled load shedding, deliberate blackouts in residential districts, to keep frequency from sagging below safe limits. Power was cut to thousands so that hospitals, rail traction, and air defense sites could stay online. Air defenders paid for every saved node. Near a major 330 kilovolt ring, an IRIS-TSLM battery held fire through the Shahed waves, conserving missiles for something faster, smarter. When its radar finally picked up a tight cluster of high-speed tracks, cruise missiles riding in at medium altitude, the order snapped across the net. 4 interceptors punched upward, their seekers locking onto the incoming Kh-101s. In less than a minute, 4 fireballs bloomed in the upper sky, their debris scattering short of the substation. The node stayed alive, but its location and signature were now firmly cataloged by the enemy. At the edge of the front, the grid's pain translated into military friction. Artillery brigades that drew power from fixed substations for radar, fire control computers, and charging systems were forced onto generator power. Fuel convoys were retasked from frontline units to keep those generators running. Repair battalions saw their machine tools slow and then stop as voltage dipped. None of it halted combat outright, but it stretched timelines and narrowed options in ways commanders felt before they fully understood. By 2:30 a.m., the sky was quiet. The war shifted underground into control rooms, repair depots, and the cramped cabins of mobile substations parked on muddy access roads. In the National Dispatch Center, the night shift handed over to the morning team with a simple status line: grid fragmented, but stable. Ukraine was no longer running a single synchronized machine. It was juggling several semi-islands of power. Regional pockets tied to surviving 330 kilovolts and 750 kilovolts corridors, patched together through whatever lines were still intact. Priority lists hardened into orders. First, keep critical infrastructure energized: hospitals, water systems, railway junctions, air defense nodes, key command posts. Second, re-establish east-west and north-south transmission spines, even at reduced capacity. Everything else, residential lighting, commercial districts, non-essential industry, waited. Repair convoys rolled at dawn. Flatbeds carried replacement breakers, high-voltage bushings, and the most precious cargo of all, spare auto-transformers and mobile GIS units. Crews in flame-retardant overalls moved under the charred skeletons of transmission gantries, cutting away melted aluminum and shattered porcelain. At some yards, damage was superficial: scorched bus bars, blown arrestas. At others, smoking craters marked where transformers had stood. Those sites would take weeks or months, not days. International support began to slot into the plan. Pre-war procurement contracts were quietly amended. Transformer factories in Europe resequenced production. Modular substations, designed for peacetime emergencies, were diverted to a country in an active missile envelope. Every container that crossed a border with high-voltage equipment inside functioned as strategic reinforcement, no less vital than artillery or armor. Russian planners updated their own assessment. The strike had cut capacity, forced rolling blackouts, and slowed military logistics. But it had not produced a systemic collapse. Redundant paths, fast switching, and aggressive repair had kept the grid on its feet. Future operations would need more missiles per node, more precise intelligence, and acceptance of diminishing returns. For Ukrainian commanders, the lesson was blunt. Artillery, armor, drones, infantry, all depended on invisible lines of steel and ceramic stretching hundreds of kilometers to the rear. From that night on, protecting transformers and substations became part of operational planning. Every new radar, every SAM battery, every key headquarters was mapped not just against terrain and enemy fire, but against a single question. What happens here if the lights go out again?